스튜디오 라이브 ASL에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
나의 레벨은 다르다. 어나더 레벨 핫식스와 함께하는 ASL 시즌 13 24강 2조 경기를 인사드립니다. 안녕하세요. 이현경입니다. 어제 펼쳐졌던 D조 경기 정말 한 치 앞도 예상할 수 없었던 치열한 경쟁 끝에 결국 김지성 선수와 김경모 선수가 16강행 티켓을 거머쥐는 데 성공했습니다. 이제 얼마 남지 않은 16강 자리를 위한 오늘도 치열한 경쟁이 예상되는데요. 경기 앞두고 있는 2조 4명의 선수와 함께하겠습니다. 안녕하세요.
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 네, 먼저 박상현 선수와 인사 나눠보겠습니다. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
자, 최근에 경기를 홍덕 선수와 ASL 시즌3에서 펼쳤습니다. 하지만 그 사이에 홍덕 선수의 성장이 좀 비약적으로 이뤄지기도 했고 첫 경기가 박상현 선수에게 조금은 중요할 것 같다는 생각이 드는데요. 어떤 생각을 갖고 계실까요?
요새 홍덕이가 너무 잘해가지고 긴장되긴 하는데 그래도 결대로 갈 것 같습니다.
홍덕 선수에게도 같은 질문을 좀 드려보고 싶은데 팀리그에서 박상현 선수에게 패배하긴 했지만 지금 오늘 첫 경기 상대 오히려 좋아 막 이런 느낌이 들 수도 있을 것 같거든요.
좀 요즘 게임이 잘 되고 있기는 한데 그래도 요즘 제일 잘하는 저구 중에 한 명인 그 상현이랑 또 첫 경기인데 긴장은 되지만 좀 게임 요즘 잘 되고 있으니까 좀 좋은 경기 결과 나오지 않을까 싶습니다.
박상현 선수는 일단 그래도 자신감을 내비쳤거든요. 홍덕 선수는 좀 어떨지 들어보고 싶네요.
상현이가 근데 요즘 확실히 게임이 많이 안 되는 게 좀 보이더라고요. 그래가지고 제가 실수만 안 하면은 또 이길 수 있지 않을까 싶습니다.
좋습니다. 자, 옆에 계신 정영재 선수와도 인사 나눠보겠습니다. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
정영재 선수도 어느새 7번째 ASL 본선 진출이십니다. 이제 뭐 명실상부 베테랑 선수 중 한 분이신데 7번째 시즌은 좀 다른 시즌과 다른 느낌이 있으실까요?
이제 16강을 무조건 간다고 생각을 하시더라고요, 다들. 그래가지고 좀 부담스러운 게 좀 큰 것 같아요, 이제.
그만큼 정영재 선수가 시즌을 거듭할수록 보여줬던 모습들이 있기 때문에 그에 따라서 또 기대감도 커지고 있을 수밖에 없는데요. 이번에는 최호선 선수와도 이야기를 나눠보겠습니다. 안녕하세요.
네, 안녕하세요.
이번 시즌 이 본선의 마지막 문을 닫는 역할을 최호선 선수가 해주셨습니다. 마지막 예선에서 뚫고 올라왔을 때 그 감정이 어떠셨는지 기억하실까요?
예선은 그래도 좀 잘 뚫었어가지고 그래도 뭐 당연히 뚫을 거라 생각은 하고 있었어요. 네.
오늘 경기 앞두고 계신 컨디션은 어떠세요?
뭐 컨디션은 좋은데 제가 24강에서 거의 한 3연속으로 떨어졌거든요. 그래가지고 좀 다들 기대가 없는데 그래도 좀 열심히 준비했으니까 좀 올라가 보도록 하겠습니다.
계획이 있는 듯한 뉘앙스의 답변을 해주셨는데요. 지금부터는 팬분들의 질문을 드릴게요. 박상현 선수에게 먼저 질문 드리겠습니다. 아무래도 손목 상태에 대한 걱정이 굉장히 많았습니다. 공지를 통해서도 뭐 손목에 진통제를 맞았다. 또 석회가 생긴 상황이다라는 좀 걱정스러운 소식들을 좀 들려주셔서 어떤지 좀 여쭤봐도 될까요?
손목에 약간 돌이 생겨가지고 그거 이제 스테로이드 주사 맞고 초음파 치료하니까 좀 쉬니까 많이 괜찮아져서 지금은 이제 통증 하나도 없어서 좋은 컨디션으로 할 수 있을 것 같아요.
다행이네요. 경기에 지장이 없을 것 같다는 이야기를 들으니까 좀 안심이 되는데 다른 선수들은 손목 좀 관리를 잘 하고 계시나요? 정영재 선수는 어떠세요?
솔직히 잘하는 사람들은 아프다고 해도 그러려니 하는데 저는 아프다고 하면 네가 왜 아프냐고 물어봐서 저는 아프다고 안 합니다.
아무쪼록 경기에서 오랫동안 뵈야 되기 때문에 손목 관리 선수들 정말 중요할 것 같습니다. 자, 계속해서 또 질문을 드려보도록 하겠습니다. 홍덕 선수에게 주신 질문인데요. 왼손잡이시잖아요.
네네.
왼손으로 마우스를 잡는 것으로 알려져 있는데 좀 불편한 점이 있는지 고충이 있는지 물어봐 주셨어요.
사실 불편한 점은 하나도 없고요. 다른 사람들보다 더 장점이라고 하면은 단점만 얘기해야 되나요?
편하게 말씀해 주세요.
장점은 그냥 그 키패드 숫자 키패드를 자유롭게 다 쓸 수 있다는 거. 그게 좀 장점인 것 같아요.
오히려 좋다. 알겠습니다. 이번에는 정영재 선수에게 남겨주신 질문인데요. 지난 시즌에 4강까지 가게 되면 꼭 여자친구분에게 감사 인사를 표현하겠다라는 이야기를 해주셨는데 아쉽게 4강까지는 가지 못하시고 시즌을 마무리하셨잖아요. 이번 시즌에서 또 더 높은 단계까지 가게 된다면 혹시 더 좀 공개 프로포즈라든지 좀 표현을 해주실 수 있는지 질문을 주셨어요. 아무래도 뭐 프로포즈보다는 그만큼 정영재 선수가 높은 곳에 좋은 성적을 거두길 바라시는 팬분들의 마음인 것 같아요.
일단 24강에서 꺼낼 얘기는 아닌 것 같고요. 높이 우승하면은 프로포즈를 하겠다고 우스갯소리로 했는데 사실상 좀 많이 힘들 것 같고요.
정영재 선수가 바라보고 있는 이번 시즌의 목표는 냉정하게 어딜까요, 그러면?
목표는 일단 4강인데요.
네.
오늘이 힘들 것 같네요, 그때.
오늘 고비를 잘 넘긴다면 정영재 선수도 커리어 하이를 노려봐도 좋을 것 같다라는 이야기까지 들어봤고요. 마지막으로 최호선 선수에게 질문을 드리겠습니다. 이 최호선 선수 최근 ASL 성적도 그렇지만 좀 ASL 시즌3에서의 아쉬웠던 부분들이 기억에 남으신데요. 그 이후에 좀 혹독한 연습이 있었는지 준비 과정이 어땠는지 물어봐 주셨어요.
네, 대회에서는 좀 많이 졌는데 그래도 온라인에서 그냥 뭐 스폰파이나 하면은 승률은 잘 나와요. 그래가지고 그냥 그대로 좀 연습한 대로 하면은 잘 될 것 같아요.
자, 그럼 끝으로 네 선수의 각오를 들어볼 텐데요. 최호선 선수 먼저 한 말씀 남겨주시죠.
네, 꼭 16강 가겠습니다.
정영재 선수.
최호선 선수의 그 연패를 이어주도록 하겠습니다.
좋습니다. 홍덕 선수 한 말씀 해주시죠.
16강 한 번도 안 가봤는데 오늘 16강 갈 것 같습니다.
좋은 느낌이 든다라는 이야기 잘 들었습니다. 박상현 선수 한 말씀 해주시죠.
재밌는 게임 보여드리도록 하겠습니다.
어느 때보다 기대되는 24강인데요. 좋은 경기 기대하겠습니다. 인터뷰 고맙습니다.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.
ASL 시즌 13 24강 2조 경기에 나서는 4명의 선수들과 함께 이야기 나눠봤습니다. 과연 어떤 2명의 선수가 오늘은 또 16강 진출에 성공할 수 있을지 지금부터 경기를 통해 함께 확인해 보시죠.
ASL 시즌 13 언리미티드.
What's up, everybody? We're here with Group E in the ASL Season 13. Soma, Ruin, JYJ, and sSak are playing with us tonight. And I don't know, man, we've been banging out these recordings. It's been a lot of fun to get caught up on everything.
Yeah.
And we have one more group after this, and we're going to be all caught up. And after that, these VODs are going to be coming out very quickly.
Yeah, and it's heating up a little bit. And in fact, I think tonight is a very, very important night because it's hard to say who's going to come out of this group. I actually think that this is one of the hardest groups that we have in ASL this season.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, we don't have many Terran players that have gotten through yet. And this is our last 2 Terran players, right? If I recall correctly, Group F has no Terrans. So this is kind of our big chance to get, I'm hoping, one more Terran through. But, I mean, there is that possibility. I really respect Rune and think he's a strong player. So anything could really happen here tonight. And it's really going to change what the next round looks like.
Absolutely. You can see the race distribution that we have so far. It's a bit Protoss heavy, but that probably will tighten up here a little bit at the end. Also, whenever you take even the round of 16 of a tournament, it's not usually indicative of what the top 4, for instance, is probably going to look like. We pretty often, honestly, do end up with that golden ratio, of a 1-1-2 setup here.
And a big cheers to Maru in StarCraft 2, Flash, and Rush in StarCraft 1 for making that 2-1-1 ratio always real.
And coming into Group E here, we're in the twilight now of the round of 24. This group is going to be a fun one. I think there's a lot of different ways that this group could pan out. And of course, Group F, I think, it's always worth mentioning. Jaedong is going to be back. We're having a lot of these professional gamers, the last few greats in the whole world, either doing their military service now or finishing it up. So it's kind of good to get over this period of time that's basically been Brood War for about, the last, I want to say, like over a decade, but everybody figuring out, do they postpone the military service? Do they do it early and then move on? And, Jaedong's free. We got a couple more that are just going to cross the finish line there. And then I think it's going to be the best. 2024 especially, I think it's going to be the best year for StarCraft 1 because it's like everybody's going to be done.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Very much looking forward to that and seeing the type of shape that Jaedong is going to be in. Also, I noticed there that Mong is in the next group. So actually, we do have a chance for a Terran over there. All right, so I mean, the light is still there for me, Tastosis. The light is still in my eyes. It's not completely drained out yet. Taking a look at tonight's group, Soma is, in my opinion, easily the best player in the group. And I really feel like he's going to get through, but that other spot is harder to predict.
Soma is a really exciting Zerg, especially in the early game, but he's got a very brainy way of approaching this. A couple of these Zergs that we have, they really are able to express themselves inside the race that they're playing. And I think he should be somebody who gets out, but let's put that in the area of caution. Like, I don't want to say that too confidently. I think this is not going to be an easy group.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, while it really feels like Soma will get out, you're definitely right. All three of these players can upset. 100%.
Yeah, it's like...
Even sSak, that is like the older player in the group and not as flashy, he has builds. He can kill these guys.
Yeah, if these were all like, RPG static characters, I feel like Soma's, right up there at like an 8 or a 9 out of 10, and these guys are just one tier below that, or half a tier. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Ruin is extremely good. He's had some very innovative plays, especially in just this last year recently. He's somebody, I think, when you think of Protoss, he's definitely not even the first few names that come up, but these are the guys we are watching very carefully here because it's pretty impossible nowadays to have a Royal Rotor. I mean, I guess anything and all the possibilities of the universe could occur, and maybe one day we'll have something like that, but usually, especially in Brood War, here in Remastered, we kind of watch for the guys that have surfaced in the round of 24, round of 16, and occasionally round of 8 as the other people jockeying for that championship position in maybe the next couple of years, and Ruin certainly one for Protoss.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that assessment, and of course that Royal Roading is basically impossible at this point.
Yeah.
Like every pro that is in contention to win, most of them at least have been pros playing on stages for 15
Yeah,
years,
most people have been present for the last 2 decades, so I just want to say, like, really Ruin is somebody we have our eyes peeled on here, and Soma's, of course, proven himself in the past and taken out amazing players, so this is going to be fun. Soma especially, I think those matches against Bisu were unforgettable. Soma knows how to basically murder a Protoss before the game can really, before the train can even leave the station. Before the plane can even leave the ground. Like, he's pretty good at taking these Protosses down. We'll see if that's how he approaches this. It is a best of 1. It is on Eclipse, a map that we have explored all of the matchups on very heavily. I think we've had more exposure to Eclipse, whether that be in competitive matches that we watch or just laddering. That's obviously a map that people get queued into quite a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see on a map as seasoned as this one how they're going to play.
전투 준비 완료.
As it pleasing to me that it's seeking for you. Tell them the story, tell them the truth. As it pleasing to me that it's seeking.
이클립스에서 게임을 시작합니다.
Right, starting in the bottom left, we have Soma. He's got the mask over his mouth, but not his nose. And in the top right, we have Ruin. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so 2-player map, which allows a little bit more planning than a 4-player map, which I think could do well for Ruin, right? Like, we've seen some amazing planning going on from some of these Protoss players nowadays. Like, I'll never, ever in my entire life forget that game from Mini against Queen on Eclipse from last season. That was, like, the greatest thing I've ever seen. And the thing is, Ruin, I think, comes in with great plans, and He's super modern, so let's see what he's going to bring here.
I do want to put a little idea out here. You know, we were talking about what they might do. It does seem to me like a 4-player map is always a little bit worse for a Protoss player, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's think about this out loud here for a second. Like, there are certain opening, like, you know, a PvT map, certainly a Protoss is happy to play a Terran, right? In a 1v1, right? But I think, for instance, there's some maps where you would probably want to be on a 2-player, 2-spawn location map versus a 4, right? Like, you know, if you're Protoss and there's 3 other spots you got to scout, there's a lot of other variables you have to factor in depending on your opening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think for opening 100% that 2-player maps for the very opening of the game are really good for Protoss.
Yeah.
Although I think like if you look at PvT, you want a bigger map for longer games because the smaller maps close up and Terran starts to take control. So I would say like opening, it's very good for Protoss 2-player maps. They get really specific with these crazy build orders, and then yeah, PvZ. I'm not entirely sure about the later part of the game. Probably the smaller map would be better for Protoss, I would imagine, because then Zerg can't have like 7 bases, you know?
Right.
You can't get 7 bases on this map against Protoss.
There's always
the game is over before then.
There's always ways to play around features of the map and you know, try to do it that way. But I was just kind of thinking big picture here. By the way, we did see Ruin also do the loop around here, where he went underneath the Overlord scouting. Did not see a hatchery. Confirmed that it's a quick pull. And this does seem to be a growing trend in general for Zergs, is to basically get the pulls out right away and force cannons. And sort of limit the ability for the Nexus to get put there that quickly. But we saw Ruin put down 2 cannons immediately. The placement's kind of funny, but I guess when you think about it, if you have 2 cannons, you're not really that worried about trying to get the gateway, you know, in the normal position you'd get otherwise. You see what I'm saying? I guess it goes there anyways, and now we just have the Forge kind of back.
Yeah, can I take a guess as to what this is?
Yeah, please.
From Ruin, because the placement is so different from what I've seen on this map. Like, we were actually talking about it on some of the other casts, right? About, like, cannon positioning. Do you put it right next to the gate? Do you space it back 1 hex? Because that makes it harder for Hydras to jump upon it and things like that. This looks to me like a cannon placement where he's saying, I am not going to lose this Forge.
Yeah,
right?
You know, losing the
like,
Forge is a pretty big issue. It feels to me like he basically... Yeah, and like losing it at +1 or even at +1 armor, right? Like, you hate as a Protoss player, so... I don't know, I look at this placement, I'm like, okay, so this is slightly more susceptible to a Hydra all-in, but the Forge won't die. If the Forge dies, you're dead already. Yeah, the gateway's quite expendable, you know, and one of the things I was looking at this and wondering was, like, do you even want to put the gateway there at all? But you don't have a pylon anywhere else at that point in time to place it down on. But, you know, Ruin's always brought a couple new ideas, especially in early game. And so, you know, this is kind of a cool start here. I don't know if this is just more, you know, akin to the way he plays the game, or if this is something we're going to see a little bit more of. But I know I have not personally seen this outside of this game.
All right, now we have a Zealot kind of walking across the map, so seems like Soma is mostly catching this, might be able to kill it off. Yeah, it turns around, so I guess it will end up being on a bit of a one-way mission. But another Zealot comes up to join it. Some excellent micro there from Soma, losing just a Ling to kill a Zealot.
So the +1 air attack is being upgraded here. I think pretty likely we'll have +1 weapons with that too here. Probably the Corsair Zealot charge combo coming out. But it's +1 weapons before... even air weapons, is what I mean to say, before even the Forge, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I wonder why he's going specifically for that so quickly.
Actually, I don't think this is that uncommon. I think it's just like I don't feel like I watch for it as much, but you know, the air weapons upgrade takes a long time. And you know, even like we see now, he's going to go ahead and get the upgrades here for ground, but yeah, maybe just getting that out very, very quickly, especially if you suspect a layer, and that's what it is here. Having the +1 air attack gives you the freedom to create threats on the map much earlier.
The Zealots continuing to be produced. Some macro hatches going down, so already going up to 5 hatch here for Soma. We'll see if he goes up to 6 or not. Do you think it's going to involve some mutas here, or is he just going to go directly to Hydra?
I mean, with the layer, I think, but we've got the second gas being taken here. Although you can go muta for a little bit without having the second gas, but getting the second gas, I think that it's definitely a possibility. Do you see a den anywhere? I thought
No,
I
not
did
yet.
not see one,
Not
right?
yet. No, I think normally you see it placed like behind that hatchery on Eclipse on the bottom spot.
Yeah, at the
Like as part of the Sim City.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm Protoss, I look at this and say, okay, we're going to have to try to see who can get air dominance here first and foremost. And so far, Ruin's responding very well. He's getting a cannon in his main. The Scourge are coming out here to basically scout. And, I mean, Soma, I mean, he's a very patient player in moments like this. He tends to not ever over-defend. He's very, even with his Scourge, like, I would be surprised if he loses too many as long as he's on top of this stuff. So he's going to see
I like
4
the
Corsairs.
Scourge hunting there, by the way.
Yeah.
I really like when we see something like that where the Scourge might be lazy for a moment and the Protoss just jumps upon it, because with the Excel, the Scourge can never hit. They have to already be moving.
Yeah, and
So-
it's easy to forget that Scourge have some of, I think, the worst vision in the game in some respects. Like, they can barely see anything. So you can actually, if you see Scourge, the chances are they can't see you right then. So you are able to come in there and surprise them.
That's a kind of a good point. I think you're basically right about that. So, like, if you have a Scourge and you're asking them to spot lurkers under Dark Swarm, it's just not doable. Huh.
Yeah, they can't see almost anything. Oh, here we go.
Oh, man, that's a lot of damage on these mutas. Look at that. He sacrifices one right into the Scourge, but he is absolutely destroying at the moment. Ruin with such an opener.
The Scourge are going to come. He might be able to flick around and get the kill on that. It looks like he wants to try to kill the mutas first here. And I think when he has 5 in there, I don't know if +1 is finished yet. I think it is. I think he should be able to hit
so,
stop.
yeah. I mean, otherwise, why is he massacring the mutas that hard?
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
Well, with that number, I guess he wanted to keep a cautious distance because you start to lose 1 or 2 Corsairs and the momentum really goes away. So he's going to pull back over here. And it looks like 2 Corsairs are going to go down. A 4th one's going to come in here to meet up with this, but...
Well, it seems like Soma's starting to do a pretty decent job with the Scourge, but only a couple mutas left over. Some Hydras starting to pop, but that doesn't look like it's enough to stop these Zealots. A full wall is created, so that does become a bit more problematic.
So the Scourge are going to go ahead and chase him back. Right now, Ruin's doing a pretty good job of keeping in control of this game. The DT is going to be out, and I think most of the Overlords on the map were cleared off here. He also didn't hemorrhage the Zealots. But Soma's staying back and playing a pretty patient game here as well. We're on to 6 hatches here. A decent number of the mutas were killed, so if he's going to still try to go muta and match this, he's going to have to make quite a bit more. But, sometimes the Zerg can basically force enough Corsairs out. It's one of the reasons why you really don't want to lose them, because you do have to have enough to keep fighting. If you lose too many Corsairs when they make the Hydras, because you spent more gas on extra Corsairs to keep them alive, you don't have as many Templars with Storm. So it's one of these things where both sides are forcing each other to attack in certain directions, and then occasionally, if a side isn't handling the game that well, they end up being lopsided as far as what they need in the ground fight, which is why we have the Hydras and the Lynx coming out here. And, Artosis, I think there is a chance, with all the Zealots that have been made here, with the fact that Zerg has a containing position, we could see Lurkers coming up next.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense looking at this position. And Soma is someone that really excels at Hydra Lurker contains as well. Now, the one thing I do have to say, though, I feel like Ruin is very much on top of his game. Like, he has been finding every opportunity. And look at this, a little move out immediately. Pulls those Zealots back out of the storm. Some decent storms going down on these Hydras. But Soma's macro is disgusting. How does he have this many Hydras right now?
Yeah, it's pretty insane, man. And he snipes one of these Templars. Now, this gateway is going to have
so
to be...
many...
Sorry, go ahead.
Tastosis, he made so many mutas and didn't do anything with them and has this many Hydras still. Could you explain, as a Protoss player, could you explain that to me?
How he has so many Hydras here? Well, I mean, truly the trick is, like, you have enough mutas and Scourge to kind of, force some of a fight. And you can see he stopped with the Corsairs overall, but with this number of Hydras, because he didn't hard commit into mutas, like we didn't have like Ogre Zergamer play, where there's like a dozen Scourge and 11 mutas, flying outside, or even 2 control groups. This is going to be a real problem now for Ruin, because Lurkers are going to be inbound here. Oh wow, he does have a couple Scourge here, and he is going to catch those Corsairs. Now, keep in mind, if the Lurker tech can get out here in time, the Scourge and the mutas are a real problem for the observers, and we already know. Well, hold on, he actually just has Hydra, so
yeah, nothing yet that is burrowed. He does have an observer out just in case, but the Hydra count is so gigantic. He's actually moving forward and sniping a lot of the High Templars here. Only one left over. He does have a Storm on it, but honestly, the Storms don't seem good enough. Soma's army is just massive.
Yeah, now Soma's army's been thinned out a little bit. You can see the Dragoons come in. Dragoons alone are not useful against large numbers of Hydras. If you're winning fights in small numbers of Hydras, the Dragoons are actually pretty awesome because they're more micro-bull than the Hydras because of their range, but he needs to basically fill this in with Zealots and High Templar. I was wrong. I thought the Lurker Tech was going to come. We'll see if it in fact does come. Okay, there it is. It's going to be back here, taking the injured Hydras and forcing something there, and he's looking to see if he can spot an observer. There's going to be a second one coming here.
Yeah, and how do you actually go about breaking out of this? He's already lost enough High Templars that I'm feeling very nervous about Ruin's potential to break out. Like, did he move out too quickly against that big Hydra force?
I think you and me both are feeling worried for Ruin in this game right now. I mean, he's starting to remake what he needs, but, breaking free from the Hydra contain alone is more realistic than when the Lurkers start to come here. And, it's not a surprise as this map gets more and more understood that this does seem to be the way that the Zergs want to try to play it, is to basically just jam up the entrance with Lurkers and Hydras, and especially exploit the Protoss' Achilles heel here, which is the Observer. It's in this situation, it's probably the worst unit on both sides. Yeah. Like, you can upgrade speed and the vision for it, and that's usually when it can't be sniped anymore, but that also takes a little bit of time, right? And a little bit of gas. And let's say that you're
like
not
2 High Templars of gas.
Yeah, it's 150. I actually don't know the cost of those upgrades.
I believe they're both 150, but yeah, it's enough that it's hard to do. Now look, he's trying to break out. Some Storms going down, but the High Templars are all dead again. So like, he just
taps out.
Dude, okay, so I have a strong opinion about this game. Like Soma, I mean, we keep talking about him. He's definitely one of the top Zergs in the entire world. But honestly, I don't feel like Ruin played poorly. I actually think he played quite well. It's just Soma is quite a bit better than him.
He put him in Soma jail. I mean, you just lock him at a late game and that's it. And it seems to be especially strong against players that commit with Corsairs because, they get an edge somewhere, but gas is such a precious resource in this matchup. I almost can't think of another matchup where it's, like, quite the same. But, like, everything that has gas is so pivotal in the matchup, from the upgrades to the Templars to the Observers, everything that, some of these games, they get enough Corsairs, and then there's really not an answer to the ground army. So I think Soma played that brilliantly. Ruin's in the losers match, Soma's in the winners, and that means we're going to go to the next side of our group. It's going to be a TVT.
Oh, thank God, I've been missing TVT. I've been jonesing for TVT. Quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll get to the greatest matchup, the most action-packed in the game.
힘들어도
어려워도 이렇게 멈추면 내가 아니지.
오늘이 뭐야?
새로운 날을 만든다.
나의 레벨은 다르다. 어너더 레벨 핫6.
어려워도 이렇게 멈추면 내가 아니지. 오늘이 모여 새로운 날을 만든다.
나의 레벨은 다르다. 어나더 레벨 타식스.
하식스와 함께하는 ASL 시즌
What's
Hey
up,
guys, welcome back. Oh,
Sorry.
shut up, Tasteless.
Sorry, guys.
Guys, yeah, thank you so much for watching ASL and supporting us on the ASL Patreon. It's patreon.com/ASL English. Yeah, I hope that you're enjoying the season. We certainly are, and especially after watching that last game, we were just talking on the commercial break. I want to see the rematch of Bisu versus Soma. I know Soma beat him last time they faced each other in ASL, but the way that Bisu looked the other night reminded me of what Soma looked like here, where I'm like, how does the other race even ever win?
It's funny.
You know?
There are some players that are so good at this game that you just watch them, and you in that moment are like, oh, this is actually broken. Okay, like
Yeah.
even though other people can't replicate that, like looking at Soma, I'm like, oh, can Protoss not beat Zerg? Did we just learn this is imbalanced? This is crazy.
Yeah. I only feel that way with a few players a few
Yeah.
times, but it's like watching Flash or Bisu PVZ or watching what Soma just did. It's like, dude, I think we might have to quit this game because it's going to be broken soon. Like, that was crazy. Poor Ruin. He was just slammed.
So we're going to go into a TBT next here. It's going to be JYJ versus sSak. And who do you think is actually favored here, Tastosis? Is it slightly JYJ?
Okay, so it's a tough one. Yeah, I think JYJ is slightly better than sSak right now, but sSak has like 5 times the experience of JYJ. And like I think that they're both pretty solid TBT. JYJ being a little bit more modern in the matchup, whereas that's actually one of the funny things that we're watching like occur, where some of the older players retain a slightly older style. Not many of them are completely reinventing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas the newer up-and-coming players like JYJ, like Barracks, etc., I feel like they're going to have a slight edge because of that style. But then, of course, you got to look at these old veterans and know that they've played way more TV matches over time, way more high-pressure matches. They have so much playing experience that is enough to kind of make up for it. So I see this as actually pretty even.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of it will just come down to the opener and who gets the early edge, because a lot of times in Terran versus Terran, you do have one player that has a decent edge after the openers.
Very true. I like what you said as well about the some of these guys have older play styles and they haven't really changed it, and it's still fine because they're very good at what they do and they've got experience. That is true. We do go through these evolutions of the way the game's approached, and some of the guys don't adapt and they still do fine, right?
Yeah, for sure. And sSak, I mean, he's always kind of had his style, and
ASL
I think he's sticking to it. We'll see how it goes here.
Is it pleasing to me that it's seeking for you? Tell them the story, tell them the truth. Is it pleasing to me that it's seeking?
이클립스에서 게임을 시작합니다.
All right, in the bottom left, we have JYJ. And in the top right, we have sSak. All right, so here's like if I had to describe these guys, like I mentioned, JYJ a little bit more modern on his builds and style. sSak is a very technical player. So for him, here's what I don't think he'll open. I do not think that sSak will open Factory Expand into 3 Factory Vulture.
Okay.
I think that because that's like the most mechanical build, where you have to have everything optimized and macro it perfectly, basically. Or if your opponent does the same build and does that, you're dead. So, it's one of those silly ones where it turns the matchup into ZVZ for about 8 minutes. Right?
I like that.
Until you hit critical mass, where it's like, okay, vultures can't attack into each other, even if they have 24 and you have 20. It's like, no, it doesn't work anymore. But before that, it's very scary. So yeah, I'm mostly interested here in what the exact opener builds are going to be. Is anyone going to go for a very fast command center? Obviously, no one's going for an aggressive barracks play or anything like that, which is doable on this map. But the openers in TVT are just so important for dictating how the game is going to go.
TVT is a really interesting matchup, man. I remember, this being such a frustrating matchup to try to learn when the game was still very new. Until you realize, no, that really is how it's going to be. Tanks sealing each parts of the map off, and especially when the game was very young, you experience something. You're like, well, how do you stop that? And it's like, oh no, that's actually the matchup. You're trying to do the same thing that they're trying to do to you in that regard. But it's a matchup that's got a lot of different builds. I think it is a very much a map. Dependent map, so many nooks and crannies and weird locations on the map that are of course factors in certain matchups, in certain phases of the game, play huge roles throughout the matchup in TVT.
Yeah, certainly, no doubt about that. This particular game, we actually have a big difference in the builds. So, sSak has opened up with a barracks expansion, which is the second greediest build. And JYJ has opened up with the greediest build at Command Center first. So JYJ has a better opener here. He will just be he'll be a bit ahead, and that's all there is to it. But the thing is, that would really matter if both players wanted to go Vulture, for instance. But like I mentioned, I don't think sSak wants to go down that road anyways, because I don't see that ending well against JYJ. So he'll probably have to go for a more teched out build here. So, but that's a little bit painful as well. Like, if he had the better end of the economic opener, I don't think it's as painful then. Whereas right now, like, since he's slightly slower in expansion and slightly worse mechanically, he's going to get contained, most likely. Now, I'm jumping like way far ahead, so let's wait and see, but that's just kind of what you think about in this type of situation.
One feature of this map that I've really kind of been interested with in TVT is the two plateaus and just to the bottom right of the center of the map. It does seem like if you're able to get onto their plateau, so in other words, if JYJ was able to push onto the metallic plateau near sSak, or if sSak was able to push onto the Badlands plateau, for JYJ, you're going to immediately get free access to the two bottom right bases. It doesn't seem like many TVTs have, with the two bottom right locations, one guy gets one, the other guy gets the other. Or does that happen?
Yeah, it doesn't happen too often. You're definitely right about that. Like, if someone's controlling that bottom part of the map, a lot of times it splits. Someone gets top left and someone gets bottom right two bases. And then the guy with the top left has to do something because the bottom right bases are better. So yeah, that's definitely something that can occur. And by the way, my prediction was not correct here. sSak is going into 3-factory Vulture against JYJ. And I do not like this for him. Like, Tastosis, look at the banks right now. Notice how sSak has 200 gas in his bank. And a fourth factory starting for JYJ.
Yeah, this seems like bad math here for sSak, to be honest. Like, he's just, or he's trying to play the same race, but he's already behind.
Well, he did just add a fourth factory, so that's good to see. And his factories are not slow or anything, so we're going to see if he can actually keep up macro-wise. But the one thing that's like kind of making me a little bit scared for him, and it's just JYJ is so good mechanically, right? Like, I don't think of him as only a pure mechanic or macro player or something like that, but you're going to see what those young hands can do,
Now, the pressure is going to build up here. sSak's going to get close to these vultures. The Marines are not covering these vultures right now, but this is even enough. I don't think anybody wants to push in just yet, but sSak has three more vultures merge up here with the rest. And beautiful control by JYJ. Oh my God! Snipes down every
keeps
Marine.
A Marine alive. Yeah, that's actually a funny early game thing that happens in Terran vs. Terran, where you want, if you're Vulture vs. Vulture, if anyone can get the Marines, the barracks can't float around forever. You get like 1 to 2 checks, and then it starts burning down. So that's actually kind of a big moment there to kill off those Marines. Like, his barracks can go in and be unhindered.
Marine Vulture versus Marine Vulture is a funny looking thing as well, because like you know, just for me, as someone who plays Protoss, I see Marines as these kind of tanky, spongy objects that are super annoying, and like you need to figure out if you want to hit them, but they explode immediately after 2 Vulture shots, which, by the way, does mean they're still tanking. Don't get me wrong. It's just funny how fast they disappear.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, too, because they actually have higher damage output versus Vultures than Vultures do. So you actually want to target them right away because they do die so quickly. So
that's an interesting point I hadn't thought of.
Shots per damage, they're actually the most important thing to kill in those early battles. Now, the barracks floating in, it's a 5 factory here for sSak, 5 factory Vulture going up against 4 factory and Starport. So that's actually kind of teched out here from JYJ. I've definitely seen some top Terrans go for this type of move. I'm a little bit surprised that he got an add-on. If he's making a dropship, that's like very much... Yeah, it is. Look, he has 4 Vultures off to the side, so he actually went quick dropship. And this could be devastating. Like, if he actually drops those 4 Vultures in, and there's not already units waiting for him, he is going to get a lot of kills.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. At the same time, sSak now gaining basically full control over that Badlands plateau that we were talking about earlier in this game, and that's great, but keep in mind with this drop coming in here, I don't think there's going to be very much that can help fight off these Vultures that are going to be landing here and can kill just a ton of workers. In fact, there's no blind spot here just with the way the buildings are built that I can see. Oh, I guess there is one, but it doesn't matter. He's just going to go ahead and fly in here and get directly over where the workers are at. We can see the Vultures on the mini-map for sSak are now turning around and scrambling to try to get back over here and help out.
Yeah, this is not something that you actually expect to see a Vulture drop when it's Mass Vulture versus Mass Vulture. Wraith is actually far more common in this situation, but the drop does come in, and you can see, look at this, JYJ, even after he loses those 4 Vultures, is up over 20 supply already.
Now, can he do a counterattack in here? I guess not with that number of tanks and Vultures, but he did push up and basically chase away these spider mines. He killed a decent number of workers. On the minimap, it can be a little bit misleading because there definitely is this whole kind of scattering of spider mines and Vultures around JYJ. And JYJ needs to be careful about that because that can contain his army, especially the tanks. Vultures, by the way, guys, are not set off by other Vulture mines, but everything else, you know, it's an attacking unit is. But I just wonder if JYJ has so much power behind this, if he can just kind of elbow his way across the map before sSak can really get a 3rd base up here.
Well, sSak is trying to walk down. He does have a decent siege tank count right now, and it looks like he should be able to take the high ground, but it's not... This is very early to be taking the high ground, so he has to watch out for counterattacks, because if you leave just enough to defend what he has there, and then shove the rest of your army elsewhere because of the defender's advantage, you might actually get some damage done here as JYJ.
Another drop comes into the main now. sSak prepared with a siege tank. I don't know if JYJ is actually looking at this drop here. I think his attention's probably somewhere else, but he should definitely pick this up.
Yeah, he does end up picking it up. We see that sSak is going for that starport now. We have the command center done for JYJ. You can see him continuing to just get further and further ahead here against sSak. Yeah, look at it. I mean, this is kind of a rough situation, isn't it?
Well,
like, he's starting his command center after JYJ's is finishing, and these are all really small things that are building up. Starting off with command center first against barracks expand. I mean, there is a difference there, and you can see JYJ optimizing everything a little bit more modern with the drop ship follow-up and everything. Really well done, and sSak is having a hard time.
Well, it also seems like, you know, sSak didn't really do anything that different from what JYJ did, except from starting from a position where he's behind, right? So, like, how would you actually expect to ever get ahead in that, right?
Yeah, it's very tough. And look at this. Now he's trying to attack down while having a contain, and JYJ just moves his army over with far more units and will knock that right back easily.
And he's basically opened up a pathway right towards that 3rd base. Now there's some more tanks, Vultures, and Goliaths coming out here. sSak does still have this position over on this high ground plateau. That's still, you know, an issue. It's a threat, but basically JYJ has cracked open the whole northern position and can start to expand there. And honestly, even more than expand, he can start to hit these locations. And you know, I don't want to get too redundant because we've mentioned the supply several times, but really that's kind of what you want to watch for. I mean, the defender, if it's siege mode's up, if mines are placed, they have an advantage. But when numbers get too drastically different, you can basically start to sledgehammer your way through these positions. And if you take out this base that's just north of the screenshot and the one to the right of that, JYJ's back to being on 2 bases.
Yeah, and that's going to be very tough here. sSak sending his units up to defend. Now, if he can hold on to this 4th base, this game can go very long still. Like, this can still be a highly contested game, but this push is a little bit too much. I think he's going to be able to force a cancel on the command center. Yeah, look at that, sieging up perfectly here. He's going to be able to pelt some of these tanks as well as the command center. It's a forced cancel, and that right there, in my opinion, is the nail in the coffin. That,
I
like,
agree.
we still had chances. If you can get up to about 150 supply on a map like this, you can hold off the Max Terran. But he didn't quite get there. He couldn't quite get that 4th base up, and really 4 bases is where it's at, TVT. If your opponent has 4 and you don't, you really feel it.
Yeah, and let's also point out that the 2 bases that JYJ have, there is no way to even generate a threat over there for sSak. And now the one thing I think sSak had going for him disappears in a flash. Look at that. He's now lost control of the high ground. And, I mean, we're just slowly seeing JYJ surpass him in every metric of TVT.
Yeah, and I think that JYJ is actually, not only did he get the better build and the Vulture drop did good damage and all that, and he's been making better moves overall. Like, I like the initial move out to the high ground there, but you don't leave 4 tanks as your opponent is hitting 150, 160 supply, right? That is no longer a big enough contain. You either reinforce or you pull it back, and sSak is like forgetting to do some of these small things that make a big difference.
And, you know, from here, I think we're going to have JYJ take the top left. You know, we talked about the bottom right. Those kind of come in as a set. It's like buy one, get one free for the bottom right, and we've got sSak now taking one of those 2 bottom right bases, but it's very, very late.
Yeah, it's 4 base for JYJ. Like, really, when you get on 4 base with 4 gas in Terran vs. Terran, you can afford anything. You can literally go battle cruisers at that point. Like, anything you want to make, you can make. Mass Wraith, mass dropship, battle cruisers, max out on mech while getting 3-2 upgrades. Like, you can do it all. So JYJ is going to have this big window where sSak is stretched pretty darn thin, trying to get his economy to the same level.
Now, sSak is slowly pushing up here. If he could maybe overpower this top position, that would be nice. He'd be back in this game. I mean, he does have a fresh base in that bottom right spot we were talking about. He just started mining from it, but we see the battlecruiser tech here for JYJ. This is another indicator of just being a step ahead. As he's aware, it's probably going to be too much work to try to actually come in here and flatten the bottom right. He's also delayed the 4th base at 12 o'clock. But to go for battlecruisers basically is the play here.
Yeah, and in fact, Eclipse is the best battlecruiser map that we've had in a very long time. Battlecruisers absolutely dominate this map. It gets so choked up and so tight that it's a really, really strong play, and that's going to be tough for sSak to not only defend these giant mech armies, but also get ready in time to play against battlecruisers.
A lot of pressure over here. And, you know, TVT is so funny because it can kind of look like, oh, it seems like they about have half the map, but even if you have like 55% and they have, you know, 45, it's a huge difference. And now he's going to push up here, and I just don't think this base is going to be claimed. The one that you can see the fighting over. Not that there's actually expansion built there. And I think I see a command center from JYJ headed to the north to actually take this base as well.
Yeah, I think you're actually right about that. You don't see it that often, but I mean, if you have that base in top left, that is better than the bottom right bases by far. So He continues to gain more and more of an advantage. JYJ has put out... This is one of the more beautifully executed TVTs, honestly. Like, every move he's made has been fantastic. His build order, strategically, how he's handled every single move has been really phenomenal. Tip-top level Terran versus Terran play.
And, you know, honestly, it is kind of a feature of TVT, but, you know, it can be when you can get a lead, it's a lot of work to end that. You know what I mean? But he's basically starting to push through here. We're just about to pass 17 minutes, but, you know, as he's broken the position over here, he can start to shell this base down here, one of the two bases in the bottom right, and I think there's not enough tanks to fight back here for sSak. Killing off the SCVs here.
I mean, he's using every tactic in the book, like sending his SCVs down and getting on top of some of the front tanks while he ferries up siege tanks to the high ground here. So he's doing his best to try to hold on, but the battle cruisers are coming. And he is not ready for the battle cruisers. He's just not.
So he's... I don't know how else to say, man. I mean, I feel like this game is close to over. I get sSak trying to fight back here, but especially as these battle cruisers fill in the rest of the supply. I don't know that he's going to bring him out just yet, but like, it's just getting harder and harder to imagine any way that sSak can come out on top. And, you know, JYJ is now at that point in time where he's just going to start growing this bank account. You know, JYJ is just going to, gas is going to spike. He's eventually going to need to get rid of some of his SCVs once he's mined out enough of the map. Yeah, that's it. Okay, GG, I was going to say.
Yeah,
we described
the battle cruisers are the knife in the heart. Like already, JYJ. Even if he had literally not even started battle cruisers, he's still gonna probably win that game.
I thought I was
but
like,
when you see them fly in, it's just game over, and sSak knows.
Felt like I casted somebody get killed there, and then I had to keep casting. So I'm like talking about the body being decomposed now. I'm like, all right, like worms are gonna grow on him. He's gonna turn into dirt.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I don't think sSak should have chosen to go Vulture there. You're behind going Vulture against a faster expansion. That's like, that is the case. And it's a risky maneuver. It can work. You can make it work sometimes, but I think the winning percentage of a play like that is not particularly high. I would have preferred to see sSak maybe try something else, but that's it. He goes to the loser match.
That's right. We're going to have a short little break. When we come back, it's going to be JYJ versus Soma. I am really excited about this one because these guys are both in excellent form. Sit tight, guys. Group E will resume in a little bit.
ASL 시즌 13 Unlimited.
Welcome back, everyone. We are ready to go into the winners match, and this is going to be a really fun one. I don't know who's actually better. I mean, Soma is. If I had to guess, I'd say Soma maybe a little bit stronger, but JYJ. You know, the more I cast him, and you know, Tastosis, you've known him a lot longer because obviously you play Terran, so you kind of default into probably following those players more. But I'm always stunned with how strong JYJ looks. I don't follow him personally at all.
Yeah, no, JYJ has been on the Terran radar for years now, to the point where, like, before Flash went to military, people were asking him, they're like, what's up? Like, who's it going to be, Royal or JYJ? You know, like that type of thing, because we know that they are the next ones in line. It takes a really long time to get to the top in Brood War, and he's knocking on the door. And now he's going up against Soma. And if you recall, right, they had that polypoid game last season where Soma was dead and then won. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Where it was like one base and like he was holding on with like lurker tactics and stuff. It was absolute insanity. So I'm very excited for this game.
This is going to be a fun one. And Soma, man, I mean, I'm just a big fan of the way he plays Zerg. Or actually, I'm afraid of it. Like he's an angry god. That's probably the better way to put it.
That's the right way to. Yeah, I'm afraid of it too.
I'm afraid of his Zerg, and that's why I worship him out of fear for retribution.
게임을 시작합니다.
All right, let's go to Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. See how good it is.
All right, so we have JYJ there in the top right, and in the bottom left we have Soma. I like that. I worship him for fear of retribution.
He's an angry god, okay?
yeah, for sure.
He Ling rushes a certain way, and I'm like, I have to sacrifice my children now. He is so pissed off.
Make a red mark on my door or something.
I have to throw my wife
like,
in a
Soma,
volcano
please leave
now.
my household alone.
Get the lamb's blood, put it on the doors. Soma is Hydra rushing.
But yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm really excited to see how Soma will end up playing this map. They're cross spawns, so that means the 12, 3, 6, and 9 bases are all fair game because each of them have access to one of them. And I think that's this was one of the main things I was thinking about when I first saw this map. Right, was that. Specifically in Terran vs. Zerg, you can probably get an extra gas relatively easy in certain spawn positions. That's going to be very difficult for Terran to attack into.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's definitely something that a Zerg can exploit, right?
Yeah, and generally maps that we've had that are like that, like for instance Optimizer, if you recall, with those kind of back paths that you can kind of get in, and in Terran has a hard time busting those down because of mutas. Oftentimes Crazy Zerg becomes popular in those spots, although Crazy Zerg has been falling off at the pro level.
I want to just say, Arto, because Crazy Zerg is the one most nondescript thing for anybody. Like Crazy Zerg is, you mean just like not really going muta, or not really going lurker, I mean, and then just going straight into like cracklings with armor upgrades and then ultras, right?
So it's a direct rush to Ultra after Muta.
Okay.
It's no Defiler, no Lurker. That's specifically what it is.
I'm only stopping you there because literally I think out of all the things we talk about in StarCraft, like when people say Crazy Zerg, like if somebody doesn't actually know that style, like and pops in, they have no idea.
Well, that's kind of funny that you say that. Yeah, you're definitely right. But like if you say Crazy Zerg, a Terran player, like you basically just injected all these horrors into our brains.
That's
and,
right.
Like, we see 1,000 losses that we've had on the ladder to high armor ultralisks running around the map. So like it's for me personally, it's the most descriptive word. It conveys more meaning than any other word in the human language to me. But I get you, yeah.
See, for me, I'm going to be like, oh, he's going sunglasses Protoss. And you're like, what's that? I'm like, he's Cannon Rush.
Oh no, that's actually that's pretty descriptive. I get that, Tasteless. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is the build that you do to get S rank when you're actually at the beach all day. Yeah,
that's so funny. This is like, I was about to say, is Drone gonna live? This is the toughest drone ever.
It actually was surprising how much damage it took. I think there must have been a miss shot when it went up the ramp. But okay, it's a walled expansion here into 2 barracks play, and Soma did go up the ramp, so he actually saw the second barracks, which is pretty big. And then Soma on his side, it looks like just a standard 2-hatch. And we'll see where he goes with this. Like, with these 2-hatch plays, you either go 3rd hatch in the main, or you go 3rd hatch at a 3rd base. Well, I guess those are the only options, truly. But that's the part that I was wondering about, that we were talking about at the beginning here, where, like, is he going to try to jump a drone and, like, get a different expansion that's hard to attack, or will he just take, like, a more normal one?
There's that in the main. Yeah, 3rd hatch in the main. It's going to be put over there. You can hide tech or not hide tech. It kind of forces this funny guessing game for the Terran about like trying to scan where and figure out what's going on. And with the Spire here as well, it's going to be 3 hatch into Muta, very economical. Terran is not as hard pressed to get defenses out as quickly as like a 2 hatch. But I think this is a very healthy, safe way to play. Soma isn't really pointing this game in any one direction.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to give you, like, more units, but still pretty speedy mutas, so can put that pressure on right away. Soma, of course, one of the best mutalisk microers in the world, so definitely wants to get those out pretty quickly. The SCV trying to get some more intel, but You know, this is actually like kind of the two most standard openers going at it. It's like a 2 racks Academy Rush. As you can see, he's got a very healthy amount, 8 Marines and 2 medics here for 4 or 5 minutes, so he can kind of push out with this a little bit. But of course, Soma is, like when you go 3rd hatch in main base, the reason why people started doing this with 2 hatchery layer openers was because of this Academy Rush. So this is actually, he's already like semi-countering it, right? Like there's no way for JYJ to really get damage done.
Yeah, I mean, this is about as textbook on both sides as you can have it. This is actually a great matchup, great game, I should say, to kind of understand the real basics of the matchup because, yeah, both guys are playing a very normal approach. Now, I only see 1 sunk here. This is not enough to be a threat, though. Yeah, this is with the lings and drones and, you know, just being able to target with the sunk. He's going to be fine. But he does put a little bit of pressure on there. Sometimes, am I correct about this? You can at least force some mutas not to be made by playing like that?
Yeah. With a standard 2-hatch opener, if you can force a couple sunkens, that basically slows the Mutalisk production. Like, look, we have 3 popping out right now because he's, like, making a couple extra lings. He's spending money on a sunken. So it does hiccup it. That's part of why the Academy Rushes are really nice, because it just slows down the amount of mutas that are going to be at your base right away.
So the mutas now are out. Small number here. The turrets are all pretty much going to get up in time. So I'm kind of interested in seeing, like, where, you know, does this game go from here? Terran continues to power basically without being hindered whatsoever. Zerk now takes the 3rd base in the top left. And wants to exploit the fact that there's a ramp there to put lurkers there eventually and basically control that area. I mean, we're going right into mid-game and probably soon into late game in this TVZ.
Yeah, and, you know, everything... I have to say, like, this is a 3 barracks play here from JYJ, so that's, like, pretty middle of the road, but specifically his factory is really, really fast this game. So that's going to allow him to kind of get that tech out to counter the Mutalisks a little bit quicker. It'll be interesting to see where he wants to go with that tech. Like, is he going to go directly to vessels? Is he going to want to get a Valkyrie out, perhaps? We've seen, actually, a lot of pros have been liking making a couple siege tanks lately, which has been a little bit odd, but maybe he'll go for that even.
So the mutas are just going to try to keep a safe distance, maybe bait a stem. There's not enough mutas to really make a threat by, like, attacking. But you can at least try to, you know, pull the Marines back, like we saw, bait a stem, maybe come in here, pick off this turret, see if he can't do some extra damage somewhere else. And look, that's a pretty big kill there to get those few Marines, and then try to come in here once more. And he just wants to keep the Terran out of the middle of the map, out of being able to really generate threats. Now, sending 6 mutas down here through these few turrets, this is rough, but somehow no mutas are killed. I cannot believe that.
I know, right?
That's so funny to me.
Yeah, you can't pick where those turrets are shooting, that's for sure.
No, it's the same thing, you know, PvZ when you've got cannons and they just run through, you're like, I don't think anything died back there.
Yeah, mutas are pretty tanky.
I'm like, I know these cannons are hitting, they're not missing their shots, but it's funny how the distribution goes very often. It's a thing that Zerk can really exploit, is because things are so bunched up. Yeah, you could, in theory, target, but you're not. It takes too much APM compared to what else you need to do.
Well, looking here, Tastosis, we have the science facility on the way, so that's kind of nice to see for JYJ. He is going to get into those science vessels, get some irradiates out, and this looks like as standard a game as you can get. Like, we have the Hydras popping to make lurkers. It looks like those should be up before the bio can get across the map. So this looks like it's just going to be, like, very standard, very straightforward, and we get to see who's better at a normal Terran vs. Zerg.
Yeah, this is definitely really cool to see with these two guys, to see just such straight-up play. This really goes to show they both were pretty sure they're better than the other side, and they just didn't want to play against any cheese, or, you know, or try to cheese themselves and lock themselves out of a advancement.
Yeah, they
here.
both played this. Basically, it's been completely safe the entire time. Everything pretty textbook, and yeah, you're definitely right about that. Like, I feel like if we see one of the newer players, you're going to see something really far out there. It's like an 8 racks or something, right? Like some sort, or a 9 pool speed, something like that. But here, it's just like, yeah, this is literally like, if you want to learn how to play in this matchup on either side, these are the builds you actually want to use right now.
He's going to once again come behind. And, you know, this is really good tactical stuff here from Soma. Just, again, trying to make sure the Terran's chasing him as much as possible. Zerg's really beginning to get the legs on that third base, get enough drones there. And we're getting to the point now where we can have a lot of lurkers. So the 3 lurkers are going to keep this base in the top left safe. You know, he will have 2 irradiates available to try to break through that. The Defiler Mound has started, which puts a very specific clock on this game. There's going to be before Consume is upgraded and after. And once Consume's upgraded, you know, the Dark Swarms can come out so often that it really changes the entire landscape of the matchup. So we want to watch the next, you know, about 2.5 minutes here and see, can the Terran do any kind of major damage to the Zerg before we get into Dark Swarm, and it becomes really more of a slog of a match.
Yeah, and it's always cool to see what the Terran player wants to do with Dark Swarm out, because once it's out, it is so hard to break. Some people like to just rotate back and forth a lot. Some people like to go into battle cruisers. Some people like to go into mass dropship. There's a lot of different ways to play it. So we're going to see what JYJ's favorite is here momentarily. I do want to throw out here that we saw Soma move in with those mutas once again as the lurkers were hatching, which is always what you want to do. And he got some good damage. He got a vessel. Like we're just watching some beautiful play out of Soma. He's doing everything just so well.
Yeah, why were those 4 Marines in the middle of the map? Was that just a misclick, you think? Or was that to spot something?
I think that was just a spotter group, because one of the strongest tactics that can happen once Consume is out is they try to run through the map right, they have 2 different locations they can rally out of. So wherever your army is, they send from the other one some lurkers and a defiler. And if that gets to your natural, you generally lose, because it takes so long to clean up. Not that move does substantial damage, but it will make you like lift your command center, reset all your rallies, and like be very careful. You have to cut off any reinforcements to it, wait for the Dark Swarm to end, because normally you won't have enough irradiates to clear it because you're off irradiating other things. So it's like actually a very scary move, and you kind of need to have some units around watching for that.
Okay, does a little burrow over there, and there's a Dark Swarm. So, you know, it's going to be very tough unless you have enough irradiates to chew your way through the lurker position here. And it's important to not just get the lurkers. You want to try to irradiate that defiler if you can as well. And we get into this whole game where the Zerg can kind of hold the Terran off indefinitely, but the Terran can trade pretty well by using the energy on the science vessel to kill gas-intensive tech units like defilers and lurkers. And this is also where we start to see the growth rate of each race on the map kind of do a weird flip. It's one of the funniest things in all the matchups of the game is coming up here, Terran can start to take tons and tons of expansions, while Zerg is usually stuck on 4. And even though these expansion Zergs have are often impregnable from attacks, the Terran can kind of try to get out of hand in their own way by outgrowing and getting a lot of other different tech. We occasionally see mass factories thrown down with spider mines. We've seen, this is not as popular now, but to go mass siege tank. What do you think this is going to look like, Artosis?
Well, we did get a little picture of it. JYJ is going to switch into battle cruisers here, which that's a pretty trendy play right now. Like, people have been liking battle cruisers for a few years, and more recently we've seen a lot of BCs coming around. And I mean, that's rotating back and forth how much people like it, but JYJ already has the physics lab. He already has 3 starports going, so he is going to be really utilizing these battle cruisers, and you can use them for defense, for offense. They're very versatile in the matchup.
And it's a really funny thing, the battle cruisers, because we saw battle cruisers made from time to time, even in the earliest days of TVZ. TVZ's always been a great matchup to watch and cast, and but I remember I think even in battle reports, like pre-replays, you know, hearing rumors of guys that would get 1 to 2 battle cruisers after they do this kind of mass marine science vessel play. And it's funny to see it used here now. Now, this time is a little bit different because it's actually 3 starports mass-producing battle cruisers. So, but it's cool to see that, you know, even some of these when people were really bad at the game, some of the ideas were still there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the battlecruisers are amazing. If you don't have the right spells to deal with them or some huge, massive units that counter them, they are like the best unit in the game almost. Yamato is amazing. As soon as you get +1 attack on BCs, they one-shot Scourge, so it's really hard to clear them with that. And they have a lot of health. They're very tanky, so definitely a very useful unit. And I'm kind of excited to see how he's going to utilize them. He's actually just made 3 dropships.
Oh, okay.
But where are those BCs? I think they're actually at the top left right now. I'm fairly certain they're at the top left, and the observer just hasn't shown them yet.
The top left? Like
yeah, there they are.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see
Okay,
that.
so they have been plagued. Now, this is a great tactic people use. You use the battlecruisers to attack, and it clears the Scourge, and then you drop.
Yeah, these are basically big Scourge batteries here. So yeah, the Scourge take that out, but this means that the dropships get to easily unload. They get to have cover from the Marines and everything else coming out of there. Gosh, it seems like he didn't quite unload in time. You know, that night as immediately every important unit in the game for Zerg popped at him. So like, it's kind of funny. We sort of built this up as pretty good until like it was not good at all and was destroyed.
Yeah, once they have Ultras out, the drops become way less powerful. Ultras just clear drops so well. The drops do really well against things like Lurkers and Defilers and Lings, but yeah, at this point, I don't know if the drops are going to work anymore. Back into battlecruisers here for JYJ, but Soma's macro is looking scary. He's only down 40 supply right now against the 4-base Terran.
Yeah, I like what the point you made about the drops are not good when Ultras are there, because if Lurkers are there, you can it's funny, you can like almost always outmaneuver Lurkers if you have enough space and you're hitting important stuff that they like have to defend. They can't just hold their ground. But yeah, Ultras are just very good fighting units, and they soak up so much damage that a lot of times the Terran actually would just lose in a head-to-head fight, which is really quite different from a lot of what most of the matchup is for the Zerg, where like if they have to do a fight head-to-head and the Terran's ready, the Terran just wins.
Yeah. Now, lots of plagues are going down, and this is some great tactics coming out of Soma, because this is how you're really going to grind Terran when they get so much supply. There's not a lot of counterplay to plague. You kind of eat them, and you hopefully make it so your medics aren't wasting their energy. Unfortunately, here they are a little bit. And look at that. That's a big army being cleared out by basically one spell and a small group of units. So you see that the map is becoming more and more blue. There's less red out here. There's like a floating building and like, I don't know, a medic and a vessel or something out there. And as Soma moves forward, like, JYJ is not going to win this game. This is looking very good for Soma right now. He is taking more bases. He's pushing him back. Look how close these Dark Storms are getting. He's going to force a lift on this base.
Yeah, and I also don't think Terran quite took as many bases as I think first of all he couldn't, but he hasn't. You know, that center right base isn't really accessible, and I didn't really appreciate that until I got to see a matchup like this on this. You know, not even having the natural in the bottom right is a bit of a problem as well. So Zerg just kind of flexes and builds out more. Now, let's point something out big picture here, because this game could go on for a lot longer, man. If Zerg gets those bases and they don't get contested for a while, there's actually not going to be any other easy bases for Zerg to get other than the islands. So Zerg will actually run out of expansions. I don't think the center base can really be used here. If that happens, we'll talk about that when we get there. But
yeah, that would only happen in like a totally turtled position where Terran's surviving via siege tanks.
Yeah. Now Zerg's fighting back hard, and it's possible that JYJ sort of just gets toppled here. But again, if Zerg just kind of lives off those two bases, and we're in this at the 30-minute marker, it is going to be a funny game where suddenly Terran just has to have one or two spots to mine from and really punish the Zerg, and he'll win.
Yeah. I would love for it to get to that position, but I feel like what I'm watching right now with Soma taking more bases, the battlecruisers are getting some things done. You see their Yamato being used on the Defiler, a really great move, and he's harassing some of the new bases, so that's really important. But Soma is making this switch over a little bit. He's starting to produce some Hydras, because really the last thing that is worrisome for him is the battlecruisers.
Right.
And between Plague, Darkswarm, and Hydra, the battlecruisers lose a lot of their efficiency.
Are Devourers good at all? This is me just not being a Terran or a Zerg player, and I'm just going to ask for me and probably for everybody else. Like, is Devourers like a thing that you might want to get here, or what?
No, not really. It really is much more about just Plague, Dark Swarm, and Hydra. That's like how you really start to eliminate battlecruisers later on. Like, technically, they are a good unit. Like, the Acid Spores can help when other stuff is comboed with it, and I guess they have good health, but they're a little bit too expensive, and you're not getting flying upgrades the entire game anyways.
Yeah, this attack down here is getting pretty devastating. I'm worried that JYJ is suffering from, like, almost like grouping syndrome, where, like, you're just moving all your control groups at once, and you don't have just kind of stuff spread out to kind of cover areas. Like, you know, an Ultra and a Defiler and a few Lings are not supposed to be that unwieldy for the Terran, but, you know, look at what we saw happen in that, like, little fight back there. It helps to have a couple units just sort of set in spots to try to help fight areas. Whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa, 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 whoa.
The Plague Vessel's taking some huge damage right there. JYJ, I mean, he's killed a couple of the bases. One of them was way too far forward, so it's kind of an easy kill. And now he's going after another one. I mean, if he can kill this base, maybe he can win this game. It was looking a little bit rough there as the Dark Storms were getting into his third base. But JYJ has kept that macro up. He's remained maxed out for a very long time. And suddenly, Soma is drying up a little bit.
Yeah, I think JYJ...
Oh my god.
You know, first of all, he never stopped the battlecruiser onslaught. Second of all, you don't have that much gas, right? So, like, you know, suddenly I don't see Ultras and Lurkers here, and then the Medic Marine are looking very deadly, right?
Now another attack here onto that third, so he is going to deny the mining there once again. But the battlecruisers are killing too many drones at the third base and fourth base of Soma. I think Soma is actually falling apart at this point. These battlecruisers really paying off at the end.
Yeah, he's going to Yamato that. Very satisfying. Takes out the Nidus. I think Soma may just fizzle out here. I mean, he just doesn't really have very much to deal with this. You know, the battlecruisers remain here. Pretty soon, you know, oh my god, it lives on. 10 HP here. You know, the drones are going to start disappearing, and, you know, there's not a lot of mineable areas. I feel like every place that can be mined from is being hit with battlecruisers or something else. So, like, you know, Terran is mining pretty freely, and Terran's actually taken that natural in the bottom right, which is pretty crazy as well.
Yeah, getting yet another base. Well, he did lose the third, right? So it is important for him to try to keep taking more. But you can see that he is still maintaining a pretty darn high supply. Another hatchery ends up falling. More battlecruisers still being sent out onto the map. I love, by the way, seeing more and more Firebats mixed in. Because, you know, a lot of the problem right now is going to come from those melee units and Dark Storm.
Another push is coming out now from the Terran, and I'm worried that this push might be too much for the Zerg to deal with. Zerg has barely fought back, but there were a lot of drones killed in this process. You know, the Zerg does have because this has been such a, you know, tense game, the Zerg, I think, actually still has a lot of minerals at the two bases at the top left.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is kind of crazy. It goes to show you how close this has really been. Terran, you know, Terran is not sitting that comfortably either here. The thing is, Terran is maxed out, which is always a good thing. Don't be confused, though, guys. Zergs can survive off, you know, almost no supply. It's kind of crazy, even in late game.
Yeah, they definitely, it takes a lot to kill them, but I think we're reaching that moment where right now I know that the main and natural gases are empty, right? And
true.
That's, you are not mining much gas as Soma right now. You see a lot more Lings being added in, which the Firebats are countering. And this might be the killing blow right
I think so.
JYJ putting out an amazingly strong Terran Berserk game.
Yeah, he's just going to win on both fronts. GG, Soma is killed off. JYJ escapes into the round of 16, leaving only 3 spots left for one player in Group E to fight over, and then, of course, our next group.
Yeah, Soma not winning the group, I think maybe a little bit of a surprise, but JYJ is showing his continued growth in StarCraft, his continued class. The mass battlecruisers doing amazingly, great expanding, great macro management. I got really, I mean, when the Darkstorm started going up in his third, I'm like, oh god, that's where a lot of Terrans just fall apart.
Yeah.
But he was able to fight it back. He was able to parry these moves, and very, very well done. What a robust game from JYJ.
Really impressive stuff, man. And it's kind of crazy because I thought Soma for a little bit there was looking unstoppable. So the fact that JYJ fought, you know, it goes to show you in a game of Brood War, you can come back if you stick to it, even at the highest levels.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to have an interview now with JYJ and find out how he's feeling. You know, he's moving on to the round of 16. He's played, honestly, amazingly today in the 2 games that he did have to show what he's got in. So let's see how he's feeling.
ASL 시즌 13 24강 2조 경기에 함께하고 계십니다. 오늘의 첫 번째 16강 진출자는 테란 정영재 선수입니다. 지금 바로 함께하시죠. 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
경기 전 인터뷰에서는 살짝 자신이 없는 듯한 모습도 엿봤는데 웬걸요, 경기력이 이렇게 좋다니요. 가장 먼저 16강 진출에 성공하시면서 4시즌 연속 16강 자리에 올라가셨습니다. 소감을 먼저 좀 들어볼까요?
일단 첫 번째 게임은 좀 너무 유리하게 시작해서 이래도 되나 싶을 정도로 쉽게 끝나가지고, 그래서 두 번째 게임만 준비하자 생각했는데
네.
두 번째 게임이 생각보다 너무 안 좋았던 것 같은데 무아지경으로 했는데 이긴 것 같아요.
첫 번째 최우선 선수와의 경기는 워낙 정영재 선수 태태전을 잘하는 선수기도 하고 또 출발 자체가 좋았기 때문에 쉽게 이겼다라는 느낌을 받으셨을 것 같은데, 두 번째 박상현 선수의 승자전 경기는 사실 초반만 해도 베슬이 나오기 전에 박상현 선수가 굉장히 좋아하는 흐름대로 경기가 좀 풀려가는 느낌이 들었거든요. 뮤탈로 굉장히 초반부터 흔드는 것도 거셌고, 정영재 선수가 좀 손 쓸 방법이 없을 정도로 사카스도 굉장히 박상현 선수가 잘 가져갔는데 배틀크루저로 좀 뭔가 한 방을 노리셨던 것 같아요. 언제부터 좀 생각을 하셨나요?
일단 연습을 굉장히 많이 해가지고 뒤로 가면은 솔직히 되게 자신 있었어요. 어제 연습을 너무 많이 해서 손이 잘 움직이는 걸 알고 있어서
네.
뒤로 가면 자신 있었어요.
이 배틀 초반에 나왔을 때 2개를 좀 미끼로 던져주고 드랍십을 기습으로 좀 시도를 하셨는데 그 부분이 살짝 막히는 모습이 들어서 좀 그때는 당황을 하시지 않았을까 싶긴 했어요.
그때 보내놨는데 없어져 있더라고요. 그래가지고 지겠다 했는데 상대도 그것 때문에 그런지 모르겠는데 정신을 못 차리더라고요. 짭제도. 그래서 그거 덕에 이긴 것 같아요.
오히려 드랍십이 좀 무력하게 막힌 게 정영재 선수는 조금의 집중을 더할 수 있는 발판이 마련됐군요.
네, 상대가 약간 방심하게 된 것 같아요. 그거 왜 바보구나 하고 약간 그런 방심을 유도했던 것 같아요.
시즌을 거듭할수록 정영재 선수 단단한 테란 선수의 면모를 갖춰가고 계시는 것 같습니다. 이번 시즌 정영재 선수의 커리어 하이를 좀 기대해봐도 될 것 같은데 어떠신가요?
일단 원래 연습 때 굉장히 못 이겨요. 근데 어제는 연습할 때 되게 느낌이 좋았거든요. 이대로만 가면은 목표인 4강까지 충분히 갈 수 있을 것 같아요.
저도 오늘 정영재 선수의 경기력 보니까 충분히 가능성이 있겠다라는 생각이 드는데 아마 팬분들도 그러셨을 것 같습니다. 팬분들에게도 든든한 한마디를 남겨주시면 좋을 것 같아요.
일단 항상 응원해주시는 팬분들 너무 감사드리고, 그리고 지금 응원하고 있을 CP 분들 너무 감사하고요. 그리고 마지막으로 사랑하는 제 자신에게 수고했다고 말하시네요.
반전이네요. 네, 알겠습니다. 조지명식 때 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 진출 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
자, 이렇게 해서 오늘의 첫 번째 16강 진출자 정영재 선수와 함께 했고요. 저는 잠시 쉬었다가 홍덕 선수와 최우선 선수의 패자전 경기로 돌아오겠습니다.
힘들어도
어려워도 이렇게 멈추면 내가 아니지.
오늘이 뭐야?
새로운 나를 만든다.
나의 레벨은 다르다. 어나더 레벨 핫6.
어려워도 이렇게 멈추면 내가 아니지. 오늘이 모여 새로운 나를 만든다. 나의 레벨은 다르다. 어나더 레벨 핫6.
Welcome back to Group E. It's time to eliminate one of our two players. It's going to be sSak versus Ruin. And I think Ruin is going to be in pretty good shape here, but let's not count sSak out just yet.
Yeah. I think Ruin is definitely going to bring the power in this matchup, and I think it's not as hard a matchup for him as that game that we saw against Soma. But sSak has, like, here's a funny thing that happens in RTS games that people don't really talk about is everyone has a style, and the strength of their style goes in and out, right, with, like, the metagame. And sSak's style, actually, right now, is actually pretty good for the matchup in general, just for the general metagame things that happen in Terran vs. Protoss. The way that he plays currently is a good way to play. Like, he's more tech-heavy, more factory-heavy on two bases, later thirds, later fourths. And that's just, like, good for the how to play right now, right? Like, everyone's kind of transitioning towards that. So, you know, I think his TVP right now is in good shape, but we do, like, I watch plenty of sSak games, and when he loses, like, I feel like almost every game he gets himself into a good position, but then will do one attack that was bad, and then just he can't come back from it.
Well, we're going to everybody's favorite board game, Monopoly. Tastosis will be playing as the iron, and I will be the thimble.
Well, sSak is going to Monopoly. Ruin is going to Candyland.
Let's see what happens. I mean, again, one of our newer maps here, PvT. There's so many different ways to approach this matchup. Ruin, he does like to play kind of an exploitative style. Really punishing Terrans early on. Let's see if that's what he's got. As we go into this losers match, again, whoever is knocked out here is also knocked out of the entire tournament.
Tell them the story, tell them the truth. Is it pleasing to me? Then it's seeking for you.
모노폴리에서 게임을 시작합니다.
All right, we have Ruin there in the bottom left. And in the top left, we have sSak. This is a 3-player map. Did you play a lot of Monopoly as a kid, Tasteless?
Yes, unfortunately, I did. It's I don't need to play Monopoly ever again. That was definitely something on Thanksgivings, I don't know, family functions, you know. Did you play a lot of Monopoly as a kid?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it was always a pain in the butt to clean up, and always a pain in the butt to finish, and people would always quit before it was over. And whoever was in the lead, the second place person, everyone else would give their pieces to try to beat him. It was brutal in my house.
Oh yeah, and then you get this whole situation where like I've gotten in the lead before, and then everybody's like making deals behind me. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, is this actually allowed? Is this not wrong?
Yeah.
Like.
It's probably technically wrong, but house rules Monopoly is the only one anyone has ever played.
Right. Well, they actually have tournaments for Monopoly.
Do they?
They actually do, and they're probably streamed on online. If I had to guess, but it's just I feel like Monopoly is just actually not a good game. Like if you want to get competitive with anything, it's just not. You know. I know I'm really putting myself out there in the StarCraft cast by throwing Monopoly under the bus, but, you know, someone's got to be brave here.
I haven't played Monopoly in a really long time, but that time is going to return. I do own a copy of Frozen Monopoly, where the pieces are like Elsa and Anna or whatever, and my kids are going to ask me to play that eventually.
Okay. They will learn so much about capitalism that they didn't want to learn just from that experience. So on this map, Monopoly, I'm interested in how the games are going to look. I mean, 3-player maps are kind of funny PvT. You know, one thing is Protoss a lot of times, and it's not always, but a lot of times they need to get another starting location and put gateways there to win. And on 4-player maps, you know, if you can get even more than that, it's even better. But here, there's really only one place that Protoss has to go in the long run. So that means it's a lot of times only one area Terran needs to kind of stop or control. But this map may be more complicated than that. But just kind of an idea to put out there.
Yeah, and definitely it's a very valid idea because you're definitely right. Like putting gateways at a second location is like very important in a lot of late game scenarios. Not every game, but like you have a lot of games that turn out where it's like, okay, it's very important that he can flank here or create army from this base or whatever. And we'll see if it gets there. Yeah, I don't know how this map is really going to play out. It looks to me really tasteless like a speed shuttle map. And that's actually a style that Ruin's very good at and really likes to do. I've seen a lot of his Protoss First Terran games and even got to play against him a few times, and he really does like speed shuttles in general.
Well, I think it's a really good way to play the game, you know, overall. I mean, this was a crazy popular at the, you know, the start of last year, and then even a little bit before that, where it was like speed shuttles. People were just addicted to them. It was kind of this crazy way to play where you're kind of negating the Terran's position or positional advantage and just dumping units on top of where the tanks are. And of course, if you get speed shuttle, you're always going to get Reavers, and Reavers are amazing units.
Yeah, and a lot of these styles now where you kind of just dive in over the turrets and buy some time, blow up depots sometimes, go after those SCVs in the main base, all that jazz. But we'll see in a minute here, because Ruin, it's about time for him to put that tech down. And I think he did just make a robo.
And so the Terran player, of course, also expanding very quickly here. Like you said, there's that robo. He may not go for speed shuttle, but I think it's probably a safe bet, what Tastosis said. Like, he does like to do that.
You don't have to do it right away. That's actually like a funny thing that has popped up out of these kind of speed shuttle metagames where I've seen a lot of Protosses lately that will actually go Observer, third base, and then Reaver. So it's like a very late Reaver that you're almost not expecting, where when the shuttle comes, you're like, huh.
I think it's smart. You know, a lot of times if you realize they're just not going to attack you right away, you don't need to like run out and get a Reaver or even show them a Reaver or anything like that. You know, I think we had this whole period of like quick expand into always shuttle Reaver, because if they're being too greedy, you punish, and if they're going to attack you, well, then you have a Reaver. But I think, to what you were saying, it can be very good to just, you know, get 2 or 3 gates, get Goon Obs, get a third base, and then you get the speed upgrade, you know, with the Reavers, and start to put that into play here, where you really get your economy kicked in before you're spending all this money on a Reaver and Scarabs.
Yeah, and right now, look at how sSak is playing this. This is actually really an older style. This was like a very popular way to play like a year ago, or yeah, maybe a little bit more from Terran, where he's opened Mines and Academy, and that does give him a lot of intel, right? Like, the Mines are super helpful. They stop DTs in the front. He's just laid some around his main to catch Reavers later on, perhaps. And, you know, he's figuring out what's going on and everything, but it just looks like he's building himself towards a big macro game with the timing of that armory.
And here's the third base coming for Ruin. He's going to get set up over here. And you know, this is a perfectly good standard way to play. I feel like everybody who's Terran, well, Protoss, this is much more standard, but Terran too, this is a great way to approach the game. You're getting your third up here. We don't really know the big idea tech. Basically, Protoss can't just go tier 1 units and win in a long game. They need one of a few things. The most common 2 things are either an Arbiter or carriers. And then there is the possibility of getting Psystorm. We've seen games where people just don't get either and get Psystorm and try to take a fight there. That's very circumstantial. You can just really lean into mass shuttle and tier 1 units and Reavers and try to play that way, although I think there's a little bit of a cap on that if Terran gets enough supply. But we don't see that big picture tech here just yet, whether that be Templar tech or Fleet Beacon tech.
Well, what we just saw Ruin throw down was that Reaver tech after the third base. So it is that kind of delayed Reaver that we were talking about before.
I'm talking about late game tech, not like mid game.
Yeah.
I mean, mass shuttle is like I think one of the strongest things in the mid game PvT for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that. Like speed prism or speed shuttle rather, flying around with Psystorm drops and whatnot is just it's super strong. And a nice scan there. He sees a Zealot standing next to the shuttle. Nothing says Reaver quite like that. So
yeah.
It was a good scan timing, and I think we'll see sSak throw. Yeah, he starts his engineering bay immediately, getting ready for that incoming Reaver drop.
And the Obs is going to see this. He sees the tanks. He doesn't see a command center yet. I think that's because there actually isn't one here, but it's going to be 4 factories. So Terran is playing a very tight game here. He doesn't want to attack right now, but he doesn't want to be attacked either. And this is a very good way to play. It's very in the middle of the road. And there's really no way for the Protoss player to engage this. Not that there's that much Protoss could do, with what they have here. So it's going to be a bit of a dry start here for everybody. Not much going on. He's able to get turrets at the last second here because he's got Goliath, he has mines out here, he's got Marines and everything. I think the shuttle's going to come up here towards the Nat, but I don't think he can really get in here and do anything. Maybe that tank's not quite placed well enough to cover that area. Hold on. Oh, maybe.
Yeah, he's looking, but I don't think you can find anything here. This is like sSak knows about the Reaver tech and is still on 2 base. Like you're not going to find a way in, and if he tries too hard, he's going to lose his shuttle. So. Speed is now done, so this is going pretty much how we were talking about. But again, like I mentioned before, this is for sSak's style. It's good against this type of thing. Where look, he's going up to like 5 factories. I think I saw him get a starport as well to continue. Yep, there it is. Continue his upgrades forward. And when you're playing like this, the speed shuttle can't do anything really. You have all these Goliaths, you have all these missile turrets. It's very unlikely you're going to actually find damage.
This is kind of crazy what I'm seeing.
What is he doing?
Jeez, man.
Oh,
that's bold.
I feel like he was like really looking for something there, and then he turned around, and that's like the good Protoss Angel on his shoulder won out that time.
Yeah.
If he tried something fancy there, that was not
That
gonna
shuttle
work.
put a bag of dog poop and lit it on fire and left. Like, there was no way you could do anything in that moment and get away with it. So the push is going to come here. Now, let's see how well this tech that Ruin has got here is going to go against what Terran's doing. Because Terran basically went for like super powerful mid-game, as did Protoss. So these two ideas are about to clash here right in the left center of the map.
Yeah, and right now, the way the armies are grouped up, Ruin has to run, and his third base is so close to sSak. Look at this. He even has this wall. I think Ruin has definitely made a bit of a mistake with where he chose to take his third, because you can't defend that. You just cannot. There's no way. sSak just got boardwalk tasteless.
Yeah, and Park Place and everything else. Like, this is... He just can't do anything. And, there's not a lot of places to even counterattack it to. I think you're right, Artosis. He should have just taken the bottom center. Like, this is...
Yeah.
It's funny because this map is so new to me. I mean, and I think to everybody else, too. But, like, you really get to an idea of, like, actually just how close that third is from this spawn in this game specifically. And, like, the counter...
He's got a wall there, too, right? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even flank that army. It's like a little choke with a wall, and what are you going to do, run up from the low ground on that ramp? No.
I'm sorry.
No,
I thought there was going to be more
kill.
shuttles here. Sorry to run over you. Am I wrong about this? Like, where are the rest of the shuttles this game?
Yeah, I only see one so far.
I mean, you can just go one speed shuttle, but I feel like it made a lot more sense to have, mass shuttle fighting this because you're so close, right? Like,
yeah, have some sort of counterplay there. I would definitely agree that I think it's good to get more than that one shuttle. And here, it's like Ruin walked up the map to soft reinforcements, But now sSak is just like, oh, your army's up there. Okay, let's continue the attack forward, I guess. So, yeah, it seems like sSak is just kind of outdoing Ruin. Some interesting choices positionally from Ruin this game.
This is kind of a Garby game, dude.
Yeah, you know, Ruin's getting dumpstered a little bit.
Yeah,
and you just saw him throw his head down on his keyboard.
This is not the way a pro game from a Protoss player is supposed to look, unfortunately. And he can basically lock this in, you know, where the Protoss can't leave, and then just, you know, send out a few tanks and tanks and vultures there. The carrier tech is so late, and I think we're going to just see Ruin leave. He realizes that he really screwed this game up. He really wasn't ready for. I think what he knew was coming was a 2-base power push.
Yeah,
and so he just
had
tapped
observers
out.
in there the whole time, man. Like,
yeah.
He was scouting what sSak was doing literally the entire time. He chose where to put his third base, which was a very forward third, and then he kind of like ran his army around, thinking sSak would turn around with his army. But sSak is a very experienced player. He took that opportunity to kill the natural, and it's just like you can see how devastated Ruin is too. Because here's the thing. I actually think Ruin is really good, and I think he's very good at this matchup. That was not his best game. That was a rough one, and sSak really manhandled him.
Well, we've seen some of these guys that, you know, they don't quite have the experience that they need, and it's not like he didn't know what to do. Well, I guess he didn't know what to do. That's not a good way to put it. He has the I don't know how to say this. It's just as sad, you know. When the game's done, it's not like he has to open up the replay and be like, what happened there? What'd I do? It's just like things didn't add up. He didn't know how to comfortably move around the map. He didn't even have an observer to spot the mines, you know, from behind. Anyways, we're going to have a ZVT to end the night off. It's going to be Soma versus sSak up next after this short little break. We'll be right back.
I get so confused when Protoss players expand towards Terran. I'm like, what? Like,
I think the only time you can do that is if you win 2-base carrier. I think that's the only time. If you go 2-base carrier, no, it's actually pretty good. Because like you can just like if you're on a high ground area and you're like safe, like Polypoid or one of these spots, like it's okay because you can kind of like fight from there. But like like in that game,
oh yeah, Poly is different because
yeah, but like on that, I'm like, no, what? I don't know. I don't know how much you played on that map specifically.
어려워도 이렇게 멈추면 내가 아니지. 오늘이 모여 새로운 날을 만든다. 나의 레벨은 다르다. 어나더 레벨
ASL 시즌 13 Unlimited.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm looking forward to this TVZ. Soma looks very strong. I thought for a little bit, a couple games ago, he was going to be right out of this group. And against JYJ, there was a period where it looked like he was about to mount enough momentum that JYJ was going to get punted right into the match that we're in here now. But ultimately JYJ overcame him. Soma's here now. I do think Soma is the favorite. sSak is a great player. He's looked very good today, but I do think Soma's on another level. What about you, Tastosis?
Yeah, I mean, I think Soma is certainly a better player than sSak, but sSak is not going to play a standard game here. It's likely that he will go mech or he will go for a 1-1-1 opener, and those are a little bit more tricky to deal with for Soma when someone can execute them as well as sSak can. So it's not going to be a standard game like we saw against JYJ. This is going to be a completely different beast.
All right, let's get this going. I'm excited. I'm excited for this TVZ, dude. Allegro is going to be where it's all going to go down. The last game of Group E, guys. Let's go.
알레그로에서 게임을 시작합니다.
All right, in the bottom left here we have Soma. And in the bottom right we have sSak.
So,
Okay.
This map has been an interesting one. I do feel like it's going to continue to be kind of basically like one of our new central maps for Brood War for the next year or two to come here.
Yeah.
It has all the features of like a kind of safely designed map or safely adjusted map compared to some of these maps in the past, but still has some uniqueness. When you look at this Tastosis, I mean, what are your thoughts as a Terran playing against a Zerg?
So I think in general, like, I mean, this is an alternate version of Largo, basically, and I think that Largo is a completely fine map for TBZ. Like, you're decently happy to get it against Zerg. And I think it's not too much different here. Like, I guess the 12, 3, 6, and 9 are a little bit harder to break here than on Largo or something like that. But you have some of these closer rush distances that you can go through and stuff, so that can make some of the Academy openers pretty good. But, I mean, that being said, again, I will be so surprised if sSak does not do a teched out build, right? Like, he is walling here. So my guess is he's going to do a walled CC into gas immediately and just rush up towards Valkyries. Or it's possibly a Goliath build. And those are going to play really, really differently than any of the regular bio plays that we see so often. And sSak always brings some of his own flair with those builds, so I look forward to kind of seeing what he thinks is going to beat Soma here today.
It's got to be important for Soma that he moves on here. He's such a strong player, and, I think especially last year and the year before that, he was getting so much attention, as just kind of one of these exciting Zerg players. But we've had some, not many, but a couple upsets here in the round of 24. And, it goes to show you that a lot of these newer players are adapting, are improving in ways, and really not just improving on their own play, but improving on the meta and the way that we understand the game. It's very cool. Now, that being said, sSak's been around for a long time. This guy is definitely somebody we're all familiar with. And I think, honestly, that's probably a big confidence boost as well when Ruin just got smashed by him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. Like, sSak just played a very solid game there, which, by the way, this is a build that I've not seen before already. So he went for gas into CC, but it was like a 16 gas or a 17 gas. So that's really interesting. It was almost like he just waited for the drone to get out of there, microed his SCVs around, and then got it. So it's slightly faster factory than if he starts the gas after the command center. But he might have, like, this specifically timed out to better defend against incoming mutas and things like that.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I wouldn't even look for that, honestly, had you not mentioned that. But I think it's a cool idea. Let's see if there's anything that kind of he can edge out here timing-wise and get in here with a bit of surprise. It's 2-hatch layer. So, again, this is very different from the 3-hatch layer that we saw in the past. With Soma getting a 2-hatch layer, it really accelerates the tech in a way where the Zerg is able to engage with the Terran very quickly, but also in a little bit of an abusive way. It doesn't mean the Terran can't deal with it, but the Terran has to be ready to defend. Now, we assume this is going to be 2-hatch Muta, unless we see a Hydra Den go down here, in which case we're going to lose our minds. But almost always... it means that, we're going to have the Mutatech come out. This used to be so powerful that it would just kill Terrans. That was kind of when people really figured out how to micro-mutas. But now Terrans can deal with it pretty well.
Yeah, they've definitely gotten better. But, I mean, it goes back and forth, right? Like, mutas are still such a powerful weapon that sometimes you will see that early death. But sSak here, so he's been starting Marines, then canceling them several times. In front of that Overlord to try to make it seem like he's producing Marines. So he's trying to hide what he's doing, but this is a Valkyrie rush, and it looks like he's probably getting speed vultures with it as well. So he's going to want to try to keep Soma busy with speed vultures, maybe get some damage done while he gets those Valkyries out, gets a few turrets up and everything. But what will he go for after that? I think this is probably the very new weird mech switch, where you rush up to Valkyrie Vulture, then you go bio for a little bit, and then you go into mech. it's a really... we don't know for sure yet. We'll know if he makes the academy, but yeah, you see he's adding more Marines here. So, yeah, I'm ready. I'm on the edge of my seat watching this.
Is this common to fake making Marines here? I think I've never seen this before.
It's not super common because it has to be like a walled expansion where the Overlord sees your barracks and they didn't see your gas, right? So it's like all these things fitting together, but it makes perfect sense to fake that there.
Yeah, no, I think it's really smart. So the vultures are being chased now by the mutas. This buys the Terran a little bit of time. The mutas have not actually come in here and confirmed what's happening. So, with the Valkyrie tech coming here, and we should note, historically, Valkyries were considered unusable for a long time. And now I think they're really, units that we have to consider kind of a very normal thing for Terran to get. And he's going to go right into the Queen's Nest, which tells me this is going to be a move into Guardians. Is that correct?
The thing is, this is such a teched out build, and I think Soma probably is looking at this and thinking that it's what I'm thinking it is. So I'm not entirely sure what he's going to go for with that. I actually don't think it's going to be Guardian. I think
really?
I think he's going to go up to Ultras, but I guess we'll see in a minute. Oh my God, he got the first Valkyrie.
That's huge.
Absolute madness.
Continuing to hammer down these SCVs, damages all those mutas. Again, if the Valkyrie continues to fire on that group, eventually all the mutas are going to disappear. They're all taking damage. There's a very wide spray of those missiles.
Now a Vulture gets up to this third base. There's no drones mining. The first ones that pop out will be picked off by this Vulture, so that is really annoying. Even moves up and body blocks the building from being made. Nice micro there from sSak. More Valkyries being created, and this is kind of a wild game. And you can see how sSak has made this game so difficult to read and difficult to play against him that what is Soma supposed to go for here? Well, we see the Hydro extend, so
I'm so confused. Like when you said, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask earlier, but then we ended up with a fight. You said he might go Ultralisk, so you're saying like 2 gas Ultralisk because that third base has no gas yet.
Well, he would get the gas at the third base for it, but he's not doing that.
Okay,
the thing is, I've seen people do that because, like, if this build is what I think it is, he'll go bio for a little bit and then add factories. Because that's something that's been popping up, where you rush to Valkyrie, Vulture, then you go bio, then you go into mass Vulture into tanks. In a situation like that, your timing is very weird against Ultras because your bio won't have any real upgrades. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that's what it is. We saw the Hydralisk Den, so maybe he's just going to go into Lurker Defiler here because there's not going to be really any vessels yet.
Yeah, I think you might be right. There's enough Hydras coming out here. I think he could get Lurkers out just in the nick of time. Now, the Valkyrie number, we talk about in PvZ the Corsair number, like, 5 Corsairs or 6 Corsairs, that's really the number you're looking for. Is there a number with the Valkyries where it just makes sense?
No, it's more by feel. Like, you always want at least 2. One kind of takes too long. But if you get 2 to 4 Valkyries, mutas are pretty dead.
Now, he keeps picking them off in this game here. What do you think about going for the tank over the... Damn, that's so crazy.
Yeah, no, going for the tank is beautiful. That is 100% a great move because that's like his anti-lurker, right?
Right.
He has a very low bio count. He has Valkyries. They don't shoot down. And with these lurkers coming out, like, you really kind of do need... Anytime you go for these 1-1-1 builds, if they go lurker, you really need tank Science Vessel with your bio.
And I think he can actually do a counterattack with these lurkers. Oh, never mind. He's actually coming up here.
Brought them behind.
I thought that the Overlords that got killed off, I thought those were the lurkers, and I thought the lurkers up here were something else. So he's going to come up here. Can he actually sandwich this?
Really great plays here from Soma. Look at that. Moves forward, and he is going to be able to take this all out. The Valkyries come up, and actually that makes it a lot harder for everything because the mutas are going to be completely shredded at this point. Look at that, just popping as they try to fly away. But he saves that top left base, which was incredibly important. If he had not had that lurker egg and then the flank to stop that the top left would have died.
It does seem like Terran doesn't have that much to work with anymore. I mean, not like Zerg has it that easy here either, but you know, these Scourge that have not hatched yet, they need to come in here and actually start to save this. Okay, here we go. Because you can end up getting supply block just like it's a PVZ. You're not careful. And what is this, a Vulture drop? Marine drop, maybe?
I think it's Marine. Yeah. All right, so it's not even many Marines because, like you said, he doesn't have a lot to work with. Like, you don't have that much production with a build this teched out. But he goes after the Nidus immediately. Looks like just enough gets out that he should be able to stall out any attacks until the next Nidus. But sSak is doing a really good job here. You can see he's up like 25 supply, but oh my god,
dude.
You suddenly have a Defiler at the natural. This is such a powerful move. He's going to need to eat something here for another Dark Swarm.
Yeah, there's a Spider-Man there. I don't know if it connected with its target. The Marines are still doing some damage over here. It's a very scrappy game. There's really nothing to actually protect the natural right now. Now, there's Spider-Mines on the map, but, you know, Soma doesn't, he obviously can't see what's at the natural here for the Terran, but he goes in and goes for it. He gets in here, and this actually could be a fatal amount of damage despite how much is being picked off. Oh, every SCV. Despite how much is being picked off over here in the Zerg's base.
Yeah, this was one of the very powerful moves. We were talking about it in that previous game. You just, the Zergs, once they have those Defilers out, wherever you are, they try to run from the other base to your natural. And when they get there, this is what happens. The Dark Storm push, it's not even that many units. It's just nothing from Terran hits that.
Yeah, there's just nothing that can be done. And especially when you get over here, there's no place for SCVs that can go. Oh my god, record numbers of kills here. Can't even quantify how much damage that is. That's so insane.
Yeah, that was absolutely wild. You see sSak drop in. He's dropped over 40 supply in the last 30 seconds.
That's crazy. He's going to try to come back, but there's more lurkers over here. There's no vessel even, right? I don't see one.
Does he not even have a vessel?
I don't see one. I mean,
like, how do you clear this? Okay, he has one vessel.
I'm sorry. Okay, he's
Thank
got
God. This has just been so rough. Okay, gets the scan off. He's finally going to clean this up, but has he taken too much damage?
Well, I don't know where Soma's back at home. That's another big question here, right? Is like, Soma lost a lot of drones, but I have to imagine Soma has a pretty insane lead. He's going to go ahead and try to get rid of these scanners here. Oh my god, he did this a little too early, man. Oh my god.
And that's going to be a GG. Soma advances, but that was by the skin of his teeth. sSak was doing huge damage to him when he got the lurkers into the natural and up the ramp. But, you know, that's one of the strongest Zerg tactics, is if you get Dark Swarm in the Terran natural, you almost always win from that position.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most devastating things in the entire game is Dark Swarm lurkers inside the main, right? If we're going to talk about a game where everybody has tech developed on both sides, usually you can't just be killed immediately at the snap of a finger, but that's one way to do it. Get in the natural, then get in the main, and things just grind to a halt for the Terran.
Yep. And sSak looking a little bit sad. I think he gave himself an excellent shot here. He definitely outplayed Ruin. I think he played just as well as Soma in that game, honestly. I think he brought a really great build. He played it well, just not well enough. Soma ends up taking it down and advances. Again, we do have two players that we expect to advance like in most of the groups.
Yeah, a lot of results that, you know, we got to test it, but our theories were right about who moved on here, and Soma is going to be an excellent addition to have in the round of 16.
ASL 시즌 설특 24강 2조 경기 모두 함께 만나보셨습니다. 오늘의 두 번째 16강 진출자죠. 박상현 선수 만나보겠습니다. 고생 많으셨습니다. 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
순간순간 가슴이 철렁하는 순간들이 있으셨을 것 같습니다. 그래도 역시 박상현 선수가 없는 16강은 말이 안 되죠. 다시 한번 16강 진출에 성공하셨는데요. 일단 소감을 좀 들어볼까요?
승자전에서 지고 정말 뭔가 부담감도 크고 긴장도 많이 했는데 이겨서 정말 다행입니다.
오늘 테란전을 두 번 하셨습니다. 승자전과 최종전에서. 승자전 정영재 선수와의 경기 이후에 좀 생각이 많아지셨을 것 같아요. 워낙 초반에 박상현 선수가 좋아하는 흐름으로 흘러가기도 했는데 사실 좀 역전을 당하는 구도가 만들어지면서 끝나고 좀 어떤 생각을 하셨을지도 들어보고 싶네요.
제가 메타버스에 대한 이해도가 좀 떨어졌던 것 같아요. 제가 사실 앞마당 가스가 4,000인 거를 게임 끝나고 다시 이게 생각이 났거든요. 근데 앞마당 가스가 4천인 거 알았으면은 좀 더 멀티를 빨리 먹던가 공격을 빨리 갔던가 했을 건데 좀 한순간에 가스가 없어가지고 배틀을 이제 잡기가 힘들더라고요.
네.
저도 유리하다고 생각했는데 한순간에 갑자기 뭔가 경력이 없길래 좀 헉 했는데 네, 그래서 근데 영재 형이 너무 잘하더라고요. 16강 때 다시 붙고 싶네요.
또 한 번의 테란전을 최종전에서 하게 됐을 때 아무래도 심적인 부담감이 없을 수가 없었을 것 같아요. 최호선 선수와의 마지막 최종전 굉장히 빠르게 좀 하이브를 가는 운영을 보여주셨는데 상대 발키리를 보고 좀 생각을 하셨나요?
그냥 벌처 2개 올 때부터 속업 벌처가 올 때부터 발키리인 건 알았는데 근데 제가 생각했던 그림대로는 안 흘러갔어요. 좀 저번 시즌 8강에서 영진이 형이랑 할 때 그때처럼 좀 안에 오래 박혀서 이제 꼭 모아서 올 줄 알았는데 생각보다 맘에가 빨리 나오더라고요. 그래서
네.
레티파일로 나오자마자 바로 갈려있는데 좀 늦어졌는데 좀 어떻게 운이 좋았던 것 같아요. 만약 앞마당에 마인이 깔려있었으면 제가 졌을 거예요.
네. 또 11시 쪽으로 최호선 선수가 공격을 가는 길목에 럴커 에그가 있어서 박상현 선수가 좀 시간을 벌 수 있었던 것도 주요했던 것 같아요.
네, 그것도 진짜 운이 좋았어요. 왜냐면 만약에 호선이 형이 좀 침착하게 그 마린 경로에 있는 오버로드를 잡고 왔다면 인구수가 막혀서 에그를 못했던 상황이거든요. 그래서 제발 잡지 말아라 하고 있었는데 호선이 형도 좀 일단 빨리 끝내려고 급하게 오는 바람에 제가 좀 운이 좋았던 것 같아요.
자, 이제 16강에서 박상현 선수를 볼 수 있게 됐는데요. 시즌 10 준우승 이후에 다시 한번 좀 더 높은 곳으로 가고 싶은 마음 있으실 것 같거든요.
네, 제가 사람들이 항상 저에 대해서 평가할 때 우승 커리어가 없는 게 크다. 뭔가 필드 발전이나 이런 것보다는 지금은 이제 어떻게든 우승하고 싶어가지고 열심히 할 생각입니다.
네, 이번 시즌 박상현 선수 특유의 재기발랄한 좀 경기들을 많이 볼 수 있지 않을까 기대하고 계실 것 같습니다. 팬들에게도 마지막 한 말씀 남겨주시죠.
근데 진짜 평소에도 이렇게 막 저한테 이렇게 개인적으로 응원 많이 해주시는 분들 진짜 정말 감사드리고 또 바스포드 대학교 멤버들이 응원을 해주는 것 같은데 너무 고맙고 또 좋은 인연 오래 갔으면 좋겠습니다. 네.
네, 다시 한번 박상현 선수 진출 축하드리고요. 조지명식 때 뵙겠습니다. 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
자, 이렇게 해서 오늘의 두 번째 16강 진출자 저그 박상현 선수와 함께했습니다.
Guys, what a great night. And just one more group left before we move past the round of 24. And we all know the games really pick up after that. And of course, you've got Jaedong next. So cool. But look, the guys that managed to survive, JYJ and Soma, man. I mean, not the craziest results ever, but certainly crazy players here to have with us as we go on.
Yeah, and this really kind of brings everything into focus. Look at how much better this racial distribution looks now. 5-4-5. Absolutely beautiful, and we're going to be adding a couple more players. I think Zerg players to the next round. Because that Group F, man, Sulky and Jaedong, like, who's going to beat them? Movie and Mong? I don't think so, honestly.
Yeah, Sulky can be a little bit inconsistent, but he's usually pretty good. Movie is always a treat to have, as is Mong. But, yeah, I mean, I would have to say Jaedong and Sulky move on. I think it's going to be a Zergy day.
Well, I do think that there's some chance that Mong can make it out. Like, his TVZ has gotten a lot better lately. We'll see if he's able to do it. But that's going to be an amazing match. Make sure you guys do tune in for that. The final group in the round of 24. And, of course, I mean, with Jaedong playing, it's the most exciting group no matter what.
Yeah, no doubt.
It could be Jaedong and, like, 3 people that have never played before, and still that would probably get the most views out of all the VODs.
Yeah. Guys, this has just been so much fun to be back casting ASL. I know we had a little bit of downtime. This is the only stuff we can get access to, but I'm glad we at least are given access to the very best of the best here. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/ASL English. That money goes to support us, as well as the production that we have for the English version of the show and the translations and all that.
Well, This has been a wonderful day of games, really. Like, I was disappointed in the Ruin sSak game, but other than that, I think we had like a really great time, some very close ones. It's great to see even sSak give Soma a nice close game today, huh?
Oh yeah, dude. And you know, look, my heart goes out to Ruin, kind of, you know, dying out all of a sudden, but you just got to come back next time and try to deliver then.
Mm-hmm. I'm sad that we're back on camera now and we don't just have that Group F graphic still up. I was really getting attached to that. It was going to be burned into my retinas. It's like all I see for the rest of my life. But guys, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning into ASL once again. And thank you for checking out the Patreon and patreon.com/ASL English.
And I guess that's it, man. Let's go to Group F. We'll see you guys there. Bye-bye.